Good morning. This is Jorge Toro with Medinexo here for the webinar on solutions to the challenges faced by India sites in and we're getting ready to go. And we're going to give you a couple of minutes to get settled while people start coming in. I'm excited about the webinar and we'll start in a few minutes. Good morning again. My name is Jorge Toro. I'm the CEO of Medinexo. I'm excited to have you here. We're letting people start coming in. The audience is interesting how exciting moment it is for us to have visitors from everywhere in India. So I'm very excited to have you here. I'm going to go ahead and get started in 30 seconds. Again, welcome to Medinexo's webinar about clinical trial sites in India. We're here to offer solutions to the challenges faced by India sites. And just to give you an idea of who is here, this is very exciting. We have a researcher from Mumbai, an oncologist. Well, oncologists actually we have from many places. It's exciting to have this Dr. Kadawanawa from Delhi as well. We have Dr. Mohan, an oncologist from Mumbai. We definitely have very varied audience, and I'm very excited to have you here. I'm really interested in hearing your feedback, so feel free to chat anytime with your questions, and we will go ahead and get going. Let me share with you first on Medinexo and specifically on our interest in global clinical trials. The clinical trial market is growing leaps and bounds, and is expected to grow multiplying significantly by 2027. So I think all of you who are interested in this market are here because you know about this growth, but you also know about the industry challenges that are faced. You know, minimal physician participation, lack of proper patients, lack of diversity in patients, issues with centralized trials only. There are a lot of industry challenges, but India-specific site challenges are what we focus on today. You know, issues with site setup, issues with trial executions, issues with data, and participation issues. The Lancet Global Health published an article showing all these challenges and explaining how they actually were very evident during COVID-19. So we try to address those subjects today with our experts. And now I'm going to focus specifically on your challenges and the challenges of people like you who are trying to set up a site for research. First of all, we believe that these challenges can be grouped like this. Your challenges to participate are managing research as a business, finding the next study, the slow study startups, and locating and enrolling patients. So we're going to address each one of these challenges like this. Managing research as a business. Business is different. The business stream is different when you're managing trials. It's different than your regular clinical practice. So there are issues with training, with regulation, with investment, with financial transactions themselves, how to manage, how to build. It's a different business, and it is a parallel business to your practice. So those are issues with managing research. Now, managing the program itself, hiring, firing, training and certification, equipment management, supplies, development, performance, portfolio, all these are issues that need to be addressed, as well as managing the trials themselves, performing feasibility assessments, and matching of participants to interest, recruitment, recognizing and managing the lack of success, the issues, and managing the money. There's a different way the business is generated in clinical trials. So there's indirect costs, there's money paid to institutions for infrastructure, there's patient care costs, there are different items that relate specifically to clinical trials, and I'm not going to try to go to the list here. I'm just trying to show you that there is a real difference between managing money in a business of research and managing money in your clinical practice on a regular basis, your clinic, your hospital. It is different practice. So the question is where to really start. And I think with managing research as a business, the first thing that you need to do really is ask yourself these questions. You know, why are you getting into clinical research? Where's your vocation for it? It has to be in your heart. If it's not in your heart to get into this and you're getting in it just because you heard there was revenues, that's not the place to be. You have to have your heart in the business. Like any business, it needs to be in your heart. You know, what makes your site unique? Why do you have a population of patients that perhaps needs the new innovative treatments? Perhaps you have enough volume that you could actually conduct a large study. Different population characteristics and characteristics of your site that makes your site unique. What is your plan for recruiting patients? Do you have a clear definition of what that plan is for your studies, and how much time do you really want to devote to this? And it doesn't have to be full time. It can be dedicated time, but you have to be aware that this is not something you just run on the side. You need to dedicate time to do this. That is a critical part of business. Second, after that, you have to get ready. And to get ready, you have to set up the legal structure if you don't have it, or you have to be able to define specifically the legal structure, how to hire people, how to manage the market opportunity and the financial needs of the business. Now, then you have to actually get ready. And get ready means accreditation. Means, is your site rated already? So do you have a way to determine if your site is ready for clinical trials? Because you're going to have to demonstrate that. Now, you will have to execute. And when you execute, you have to find new clinical trial opportunities. And how you're going to do that, how you activate the first trial. That's important to keep doing it and then repeat it. So these are the characteristics of what you need to do for research as a business. First, ask yourself these questions. Second, get ready. Third, get accreditation ready, and then execute. We will show you, we will talk a little bit more about the secrets to success to manage research as a business. But next, let's talk about the other challenge, finding the next study. There are many ways that clinical investigators have actually started researching, and there are connections. You know, you can always use your network, use LinkedIn, use Facebook, use your connections professionally, but that's a way to find clinical trials. Respond to clinical trial feasibility request. If you get a request, respond to it and swiftly, because opportunity windows open and close. And also references, of course, if you have colleagues who practice in clinical trials, it is important that they refer you. It's important that your reputation it results in them referring you to opportunities in clinical trial. But you can always set up business development teams and get people proactively looking for clinical trials. And there are different ways to do this. There are site management organizations too that can actually help you with this. So you have different opportunities. And you can also do online research. I mean, there are plenty of resources in India and in places around the world where you can find active clinical trials that you can look for. Now, perhaps the matching job, remember, never underestimate the time and resources that you have to dedicate to marketing. So in a business, in any business, you have to do that. In clinical trial business, you also have to do that. So there are ways to do this in free and premium services, but we're going to talk a little bit more about some secrets to success on finding your next study in a few minutes. Slow study startup, that's a major concern for most experienced clinical researchers. It is very significant factor. So these are some of the key slow factors. First of all, the preparation as part of the startup. The issue of not being prepared before you start means that you're going to be getting prepared while you start. And if you do that, you're going to slow down your study startup. Second, that means in that preparation, you have several factors like accreditation, regulatory documentation, inspections. There are things that you have to do in that preparation that are important to be able to prepare. So if you do that preparation as you start, you are going to slow the startup. Clinical trial management systems readiness. You know there's clinical trial management system, there's electronic data capture, there are databases that you have to set up. Are you ready for that? Or are you going to try to get this ready when you start the study? That preparation means that your study will slow down at the beginning. The other is the communication with patients. It's very important, perhaps the key element in a clinical trial study is the communication with the patients. Recruitment process, registration, coordination, all these are factors that you have to keep in mind while you work on this. And of course the workflow. How is the workflow going to do? Some suggested approaches out there in the market that you're going to find propose to you aggressive strategies for marketing, mostly participant outreach. And yes, that can help, and that can be costly too, but it can help. And the importance of the CRA, the clinical research associate, all the team is going to be important. The preparation with the team so that the team is ready for execution is very important in slow startup. So I think that's a very valid suggestion, and we do have some suggestions on how to do that. And of course the investment in technology. If you did invest in technology or you have to invest in technology, well, that can actually help alleviate the slow startup. But again, we're going to talk a little bit more about these secrets to success on slow study startup. Let's talk about enrolling patients, locating and enrolling patients. There are challenges with this that relate to, first of all, what to do. Patient recruitment, you have to connect with the patients, you have logistics to deal with, you have patient communications. How do you communicate with them on a regular basis? Remember that a patient's trial is their own world, is their own patient thread. It's not a massive effort, but to them is one-on-one. So communications with the patient are very important, and the way you handle them has to be very personalized, right? The challenges on this are data management. Always, there's a challenge with data management, with team training. Team is very important in the execution, and you have to consider that locating and enrolling patients has plenty to do with how your team is prepared to handle that, your patient can work, can be trained and get their cooperation so that they participate actively. And how do you handle issues? If a patient is upset, if a patient cannot find the information they need, if the patient didn't show up, what do you do? Those are things that you have to consider. So let's roll right into what we consider secrets to success. So let's talk first about managing research as a business. The secret to success in management research as a business is, first of all, negotiate a good budget. Second, manage your cost. Third, do not leave money on the table. Now, negotiating a good budget, it starts before the trial. When you are negotiating, when you create a budget, you make sure that you have an experienced person handling the budget, preparing the budget, and then negotiating or helping you negotiate the budget with the sponsor. That's very important. Now, managing the cost during the execution of the trial is very important also, because if you manage the cost properly, you're not going to go over budget and you are going to be able to execute a successful, net profitable trial. And important, do not leave money on the table. 24% of the budgets in clinical trials as an average do not get executed. That means clinical trial research teams leave that money on the table. They don't execute on that budget. Don't do that. You're gonna lose money on the trial. So that's one of the secrets to success. Let's talk about the secrets to success on finding the next study. This is very simple. To find the next study, you have to be always ready. You don't prepare for one study, execute the trial, and after you execute all the trials, then you start getting ready for the next trial. You have to continuously be ready. That means continuously maintaining your accreditation, continuously maintaining the information, and always be on site. That means be available for other clinical trials, for other sponsors who are looking for sites, like yours with the characteristics that you have, that your patient profiles have. So the secret of success on finding the next study is always be ready and always be on site. Let's talk about the secrets of success for a slow study startup. First, be ready from the start. So when you get to the start, you have to be ready. You don't do the preparation up front don't do the preparation during the startup of the trial. Do it before. That's to be ready from the start. Have a dedicated clinical research team. It's important that you have very well defined your research team, and you have to have dedication by that team. If you don't have them full time, or some of the participants are not full time, at least you have to be clear about their availability and their dedication, focused dedication on the time that they are into this. And communications made easy to participants. It is very critical that all the participants in the clinical trial have good communication tools, and that things are easy to communicate. And I'm talking about the full research team, and I'm talking about the participants, the patients that are participating. So the secret to success in a slow study startup, or the secret to success to avoid slow startup, is to be ready from the start, to have a dedicated clinical research team, and to have communications made easy for all the participants. The secrets of success in locating and enrolling patients. First of all, use today's tools. Remember, patients have mobile phones now. Patients have smartphones now. You have to use today's communication. You have to look at the communication abilities of the patient, of the patient's uh, support system, and use those today's communication tools. Don't try to force methods of communications that are not easy on your patients or on anybody for that matter. And make it easy for your team. Your team has to find a way to communicate easily with patients amongst the team and with the authorities, the regulators that they need to communicate with. So, the secret to success in locating and enrolling patients is to use today's tools and make it easy on your team. So, if you're going to get a takeaway for today's webinar, I would take a picture of this image. Research Nexo provides the secrets to success on clinical trials as a business, and here's how. Managing research as a business, negotiate a good budget, manage good cost, do not leave money on the table. On finding the next study, always be ready and always on site. Slow study startup, be ready from the start. Have a dedicated CR team, and communications must be made easy to participate. And in locating and enrolling patients, use today's tools and make it easy on your team. So with this takeaways, I'll leave you and I'll go to my panel at this moment to invite Dr. Miguel Vasquez, who is an expert in clinical trials, and Dr. Vibhu Dhawan, who is our director of Medinexo India. I'd like them to join me at this point. We'll give them a minute to connect, and then we will be with them, and we will be addressing questions from the audience. So let me take a look at questions that we have. First I want to welcome Dr. Vibhu Dhawan. Can you hear as well? Dr. Dhawan, you're on mute. So let me. Can Dr. Dhawan, can you remove the mute? Dr. Dhawan, you have. Okay, hello, Dr. Miguel Vasquez is here too.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Dhawan, did you remove your mute, or are you, because I see you on mute.
There we go.
We're having some technical difficulties, so please hold on, and we'll try again. Let me see. Miguel, can you speak? See what the deal is.
Hello, do you want me to go first?
Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead, and let's just get started. Why don't you start introducing yourself while we get Dr. Dhawan on the line?
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure.
I can hear you very well. I know there's a delay on the cast, so just don't worry. We are hearing you. And Dr.
Okay.
Dhawan too. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Miguel, and good evening, Jorge. Sorry I jumped the gun, and sorry about the confusion I caused, but I'll go back on mute. Hi, Miguel. Nice to see you again. Hi, Jorge.
Same here.
Hello, hello,
Hi.
and welcome both of you. So please, brief introduction from Dr. Miguel Vasquez
Sure.
first.
Yes. Good evening or good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jorge, for inviting me to participate in this webinar. Just to give you a background, quick background, who I am. I have a PhD in oncology and biochemistry with postdoctoral fellowships in both biochemical pharmacology in the field of anti-cancer and antiviral drugs. However, my professional career expands over 30 years and has really allowed me to have a diverse and extensive breadth of experiences involved in different levels of leadership and positions in academia, biomedical and clinical research, medical affairs in various types of organization. I have been an associate professor in a medical school to leadership opportunities in medical affairs at companies such as Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, also leading some healthcare systems and also working for non-governmental organizations. As an entrepreneur now, I have founded and serve as the CEO of Total Outcomes Partners. My organization is really focused on providing specialized services to new and experienced investigators, business development for clinical research centers, education to patients, and implementation of healthcare initiatives. Our mission is really to contribute to a stronger research ecosystem that will improve access to healthcare and clinical trials to diverse and underserved communities across the globe, and also to improve the well-being and a more fulfilling life. So that's in a nutshell,
Thank you,
Miguel
Miguel.
and my organization.
Thank you so much, Miguel. I really appreciate it. And Dr. Dawan, if you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Vibhu, and I am a nephrologist based in Mysore, India. And I practice internal medicine and nephrology, and I was trained in Columbia, Missouri, and I've been continuously practicing in United States, and I have been over the last 3 to 4 years lucky enough to have a chance to have 50% of my practice as clinical practice, and the other 50% of my professional time I spend on clinical research in nephrology. Research work I do primarily in India, and I provide clinical care in India as well as in a few states in United States, and I do mostly inpatient care. I am, feel like I have the advantage to be able to do 50-50. I am very interested in what you all are talking about, and very interested in this journey through Medinexo.
Thank you, Dr. Dawan. And I greatly appreciate it. Dr. Dawan is director of Medinexo India too, so he's close to you, and you feel free to reach out to him if you have any doubt about our process. We're very happy to announce also our new partnership with Blue Cloud and Total Outcome Partners. Medinexo is now engaged in a global project to expand the reach of clinical trials in underserved communities around the world. We have the tools to do this, and we have the ability to do it. There are grants available for you to enable your participation in clinical trials. So I would encourage you to go to researchnexo.com and find out more about us. Just simply fill out the survey that is available at the researchnexo.com page, and you'll be able to reach. But now I would like to address the audience. I'm excited to see the participation from different places in India, and different areas of expertise. So I'd like to start by talking a little bit, asking Dr. Vasquez to talk a little bit about the issues with setup of a clinical trial in India. There have been a significant number of issues brought up with the delegation of site responsibilities. So if you could maybe clarify a little bit more about why this is an issue and how it comes up, how what do you propose that can be done?
Sure, my pleasure. Well, there are several issues that are pretty much general for the implementation of clinical trials. There are some that may be particular in this environment for India. However, many of these issues can be addressed properly, and that's why we're here in this collaboration. Uh, from the point of view of a sponsor or a clinical research organization, a CRO, is looking for sites that to do international and regulatory trials. There is a very strong focus on the type of leadership and responsibility on the execution of such activities at the clinical research sites. That's the expectation. The expectation is that the principal investigators and their teams are fully capable, they understand, they know the protocols, they have the equipment, the facilities ready, and very importantly, have access to the appropriate patient population. That's really what they're looking for, not only your expertise and your team and your facilities, but really, do you really have access to those patients who are that they want for them to join a clinical trial? Do you have those breast cancer patients that they need for a study X or Y? Do you have those patients with diabetes and maybe obesity or maybe other comorbidities that they are looking for the clinical trials? Not only do you have access, are you able to recruit and very importantly to retain them? That's part of the process, but that would be pretty much like downstream. Upstream, they're looking for a collaboration that is really efficient, where there's a good communication, a flow of activities from exchange of information, contracting, negotiations, and very importantly, and this happens in many countries, they need to have a site and a group that is very proactive in looking for those regulatory permits that are required, that are ready to engage in a less time. There is a window for each clinical trial, and the longer it takes for a trial to get started at the site, it really is. It looks negative on the sponsor. So they're looking for a site that really can jump to the opportunity very quickly. And many times, because of the regulatory environment, it may represent a significant challenge. That's where a organization like Medinexo and others are looking for. In this case, we're collaborating with Blue Cloud and Total Outcomes Partner, looking for local resources and expertise that really can support those kind of activities. So if we have a great, a facilitated and regulatory process, and we have trained and we have the commitment of the investigators and their team, facilities, and the patients, we are in a pretty good situation.
Very good. Yeah, it is. It's interesting how we're evolving into an environment where everything is combined between virtual and in person, right? And is the beauty of being able to transfer knowledge around the world. You used to have hire an expert and move that expert to your location so you could actually do business with them. This was past century. Now you get on a call and you actually have the knowledge of that person, and that person could be on the other side of the world, right? So combining virtual teams with in-person attention teams is a very important component of clinical trials. And I think that's what we are accomplishing with our approach. But it is a concern. Having the expertise to do that is important, and that is something that has to be addressed. There's another concern that I wanted to because Dr. Dhawan has been working on in India on clinical trials for a while. I'd like to talk a little bit about the concern about the lack of participation by remote patients. What do you think about that? And you having the expertise on conducting clinical trials in India, how do you feel that can be addressed?
Yeah, so I appreciate that, very much. India, our care is very focused in bigger cities and centers. So I think there's a huge opportunity to use current technology in getting research, and to not only the bigger centers but also the second tier cities and third tier cities, which we call in India. There's a huge opportunity there. I am myself in a second tier city. A lot of the sites that we work on are in second tier cities, and some are in huge metros like Hyderabad is one of our sites. So the problem we face is that the patients are taken care of, and then after they're better, they go back home, and that may be remote. So we do encounter difficulty in follow up, and we've used phone calls and voice calls as a way to do that. And now with newer technology being more accessible, not just to healthcare providers and researchers, but also to patients, and the ease of use, I think there's a huge chance. And then home care coming up very well in India, there's a definite opportunity to improve on the follow up. We used to say that the patient is lost to follow up, or the subject is lost to follow up because they are in a different city. But I think now we have the capability to still follow them, and have follow-up done bedside if there's a lab or any instrument to be administered. Otherwise, telemedicine and telehealth is a very strong tool to help
Yes.
us do this, which we have been using too.
Yes, we are lucky to have in the audience right now a couple of people that are experts in telemedicine, and including the former president of the Telemedicine Society of India, and my salutations to Dr. Rata. I think that telemedicine has been perceived as a video conferencing method. And that's just the beginning of what telemedicine is. Telemedicine for clinical trials means continued communication. And eventually, as I say many times in other meetings, I believe the word telemedicine will simply disappear, because the reality is that communications with the patients is what is going to continue, and we have to have continued communication. But the tools that are available now in technology enable us all to establish a continued communication with the patient, for not only for remote care in care at their home, but also for their participation in clinical trials. So I think that's a critical item. There's a also the source data verification is an important factor. And Miguel, we talk about how to handle source data verification. In India, it seems to be a significant issue that data is questionable in clinical trials, and when questioned, there is little ways to react. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about data verification.
Sure. In the case of source data verification, I think it's an issue or that can be relatively easy to address by education. If we work on the appropriate education of the team and the discipline to really input the data that is requested in a electronic data capture system, that would be a great advance, a great progress towards a data source verification. You will have support from not only from the CRO or the sponsor, but also if once we start working with you and helping you identify the appropriate systems to also support that network. For example, the clinical trial management systems that can really help you organize and have a better control of the information flow in your different clinical trials. That would be a must. But a lot has to do with education, having the appropriate processes, standard operating procedures, and so forth, so that it is really well embedded within your organization. That should address that issue.
That should address the issue. So your procedures very well embedded in your organization, right? That I think that's a great suggestion, a great idea, and we definitely have to continue to consider this on digital platforms, um, which seem to be also a concern. The lack of previous experience with platforms. Um, as an IT person, like I am, I've experienced over the years the issues with user adaptation to digital platforms. And just to respond to this specific question about the lack of experience of the team to conduct trials using digital platforms, I would tell you that preparation is very important. Being ready before you start the trial and not having to improvise a digital platform while you're in the trial is very important. Just like it is important to be trained and understand the protocols for a clinical trial, it is important to understand how to capture the data for those clinical trials. So in the case of Medinexo, we're actually implementing educational procedures with with e-learning, so that the team is all trained before you start a trial. And I think that's a critical item on the preparation for the use of digital platforms. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Being ready from the start, I would say. What do you think, Miguel, on that? Miguel? I don't know if we lost communication here for a minute, because I see the image frozen. So, well, I think this is the time for moving forward. I promised everybody it's going to be a 45-minute time slot. So I really appreciate the participation of everybody in the webinar, and I just want to welcome your participation in future events that we have. Please take your takeaways for today and learn as much as you can before you get started, but don't be discouraged. On the contrary, we can make it easy for you. Go to researchnexo.com and you'll find all the tools. I would appreciate it if you're interested and you're really committed to participating in clinical research, that you go to researchnexo.com, and there's a survey for clinical trials that you can set up, and we would be glad to follow up with you with an advisory meeting to see how you can get started today in the world of clinical trials. We need more clinical trials in India, and we can make them happen with Research Nexo. Thank